Mastering a language is more than just memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It's about learning how native speakers actually use the language in daily life. English, in particular, is full of idiomatic expressions, phrasal verbs, and colloquialisms that can be challenging for non-native speakers to grasp. However, incorporating these native-like expressions into your conversations can significantly boost your fluency and make you sound more natural. One of the first steps in speaking English like a native is understanding idiomatic expressions. These are phrases whose meanings aren't obvious from the individual words. For instance, when a native speaker says, "hit the nail on the head," they don't mean literally striking a nail. They're saying someone has gotten something exactly right. Similarly, "under the weather" doesn't refer to the sky, but rather to feeling sick. Learning these idioms and practicing them in context will help you blend in more smoothly with native conversations. Another essential component is using phrasal verbs correctly. Native speakers rely heavily on phrasal verbs like give up, run into, look after, and break down. These combinations of verbs and prepositions often replace more formal vocabulary, especially in spoken English. For example, instead of saying encountered a problem, a native speaker might say ran into a problem. Being familiar with these can greatly improve your ability to understand and participate in informal conversations. Also, understanding and using informal contractions and reductions helps you sound more like a native. English speakers often say things like gonna instead of going to, or wanna instead of want to. While these forms are rarely written in formal settings, they are extremely common in speech. Mimicking this style in appropriate situations makes your English sound more fluent and relaxed. Beyond expressions, intonation and rhythm play a major role in sounding like a native. English is a stress-timed language, meaning some syllables are emphasized more than others, which affects the pace and melody of speech. Listening closely to native speakers and shadowing, repeating after them, can train your ear and mouth to adopt this natural flow. To add authenticity, incorporating native filler words and discourse markers is key. Words like actually, basically, and I mean help structure conversations, fill pauses, and add nuance. While overusing them can become a bad habit, moderate use reflects how real conversations unfold in everyday English. Let's take a look at some commonly used native expressions that can instantly upgrade your speaking skills. 1. It's not my cup of tea. Used to say you don't particularly like or enjoy something. Example, horror movies? Nah, they're not my cup of tea. 2. Break the ice. To initiate conversation in a social setting and make everyone feel more comfortable. Example, he told a joke to break the ice at the party. 3. The ball is in your court. It's your turn to take action or make a decision. Example, I've done all I can. The ball is in your court now. 4. Burn the midnight oil. To stay up late working or studying. Example, she's been burning the midnight oil to finish her thesis. 5. Cost an arm and a leg. Something that is very expensive. Example, that designer bag cost an arm and a leg. 6. Let the cat out of the bag. To accidentally reveal a secret. Example, he let the cat out of the bag about the surprise party. Using these expressions appropriately can not only boost your confidence, but also help you connect better with native speakers. It shows that you're not just translating from your first language, but actually thinking in English, using the same kinds of phrases and structures that native speakers use without a second thought. Another key to sounding like a native is mastering contextual appropriateness. Native English speakers often switch their tone and word choice depending on the setting: formal, informal, professional, friendly, or even sarcastic. For example, saying, "I would appreciate it if you could send me the report by tomorrow," works well in an email to a colleague, but with a friend, you might say, "Hey, can you shoot that report over by tomorrow?" Learning when and where to use specific expressions takes time, but listening carefully and practicing frequently will sharpen your sense of tone and register. Equally important is developing an ear for natural-sounding responses. In conversations, native speakers don't always respond with full sentences or textbook grammar. Instead, they might say, "No worries," instead of "don't worry about it." "Sounds good," instead of "that is acceptable." "You bet," instead of "certainly." "I'm good, thanks," instead of "I am fine, thank you very much." These quick, casual responses are part of what makes conversation flow smoothly and feel authentic. They also help you sound more relaxed and less robotic. In addition, Many native expressions are cultural references or slang that reflect current events, humor, or even pop culture. For example, expressions like throwing shade, on the same page, ghosted, or that's lit might be confusing if you haven't encountered them in context. The best way to keep up with this evolving language is to immerse yourself in media. Watch TV shows, listen to podcasts, follow influencers, and read comments on social media. This not only helps you learn the language, but also gives you insight into how people use expressions in real time. Pronunciation also plays a massive role in sounding native-like. Native speakers often link words together in ways that can confuse learners. For instance, what do you want to do may sound like what do I want to do. When you start to understand and mimic these patterns, your listening skills improve dramatically, and your speech becomes more fluid and natural. To integrate all of this into your spoken English, practice should be both intentional and varied. Try these techniques. Shadowing. Listen to a native speaker from a video, podcast, or audio clip and repeat immediately after them, trying to match their tone, rhythm, and intonation. Role play. Imagine yourself in different everyday situations, ordering food, interviewing for a job, chatting with a friend, and use native expressions in context. Recording yourself. Play back your speech and compare it with native models to catch areas where you can improve your delivery or expression choice. Language exchanges. Chatting with native speakers, online or in person, gives you the chance to test expressions in real time and get feedback. All this effort pays off when you find yourself speaking English confidently, without second-guessing every sentence. You'll begin to notice how much easier it is to join conversations, understand jokes, and express subtle ideas. Native expressions become tools you can pull out naturally, without forcing them. As you keep building your fluency, it's also worth exploring how regional differences and dialects influence native expressions. English is a global language, and while the core grammar remains consistent, vocabulary, idioms, and pronunciation can vary significantly between countries, and even between regions within the same country. For example, an expression like fancy a cuppa, meaning would you like a cup of tea, is common in British English, but would confuse many Americans. Conversely, an American might say, I'm going to head out, whereas someone in the UK might say, I'm off now. In Australian English, you might hear someone say no dramas instead of no problem. These variations are not only fascinating, but also useful to understand if you want to communicate effectively with native speakers from different backgrounds. Learning these regional quirks expands your understanding of the language and allows you to adapt more easily in conversations with people from various English-speaking cultures. Watching region-specific TV shows, listening to local podcasts, and paying attention to how words are used in context will expose you to these differences naturally. It also helps you develop a more flexible and well-rounded command of English. Another area to explore is the use of emotional tone and humor in native expressions. English speakers often rely on irony, understatement, and sarcasm to communicate subtle feelings or reactions. Take, for example, the expression, well, that went well, said after something clearly didn't go well. Understanding that this is sarcastic and not literal is key to interpreting and eventually using humor like a native speaker. Similarly, a phrase like could have gone worse might sound neutral, but depending on the tone, it could mean anything from that was a disaster to that was actually pretty good. Recognizing these emotional layers takes time and exposure. You can develop this awareness by observing facial expressions and body language in native conversations or TV shows, paying attention to tone and emphasis when phrases are delivered, practicing your own delivery by repeating phrases in different emotional tones. Moreover, don't underestimate the power of collocations, words that are commonly used together. Native speakers don't just say a big mistake. They rarely say a large mistake. They say strong coffee, not powerful coffee. These word pairings often don't follow logical rules, but are based on usage patterns that develop over time. Learning collocations helps you speak more fluently and naturally without needing to pause and think about word combinations. Here are some useful collocations. Make a decision, not do a decision. Heavy rain, not strong rain. Catch a cold, not get a cold. Break the news, not tell the news. Being aware of these combinations and practicing them regularly will help you avoid awkward phrasing and speak more confidently. Lastly, it's important to build a mindset of experimentation and flexibility. Language learning isn't about getting everything right all the time. It's about trying things out, making mistakes, and learning from them. Native speakers themselves constantly experiment with language, using slang, inventing expressions, and adapting phrases depending on the context. So when you're learning to speak English like a native, don't be afraid to try new expressions, even if you're unsure at first. Mistakes are part of the process, and often, they're how you learn the most. Native speakers are usually impressed when non-native speakers make an effort to use idioms, phrasal verbs, or nuanced expressions, even if they don't always come out perfectly. What matters more is your willingness to engage, experiment, and keep growing. In the end, speaking English like a native isn't about sounding exactly like someone from London, New York, or Sydney. It's about communicating naturally, confidently, and fluently in a way that's clear and authentic to you. Native-like fluency comes not from perfect grammar alone, but from embracing the richness, rhythm, and real-life flow of the language. So immerse yourself. Listen closely. Practice out loud. Pay attention to the little things: intonation, slang, context, and culture. And most importantly, enjoy the process. Because the more you engage with native expressions, the more your English stops sounding like a second language and starts sounding like your own. Speak English like a native? With these expressions and habits, you're already well on your way.